What's up, guys? Doing a little walk to the coffee shop. Rainy day here in Medellin, and I was thinking about this quote. I've talked about it a few times in my videos, but it's from Jordan Peterson. He talks about how most men live lives of quiet desperation. And when I feel into that quote, I've lived that life a lot in my life. And I think the core of that quote for me, how I interpret that is most men are in this life of quiet desperation because the reality is they know the difference between who they could be, who they imagine in their mind, and who they actually are being. And I think a lot of that desperation comes from the gap between who they want to be and who they are. And the desperation comes because they don't ever know if they're ever going to be able to become that man, if they're ever going to be able to have that discipline, if they're ever going to be able to have that self-belief, if they're ever going to be able to step into that power, that man that they can imagine, right? All of us have that ideal version of ourselves. I call it the ultimate man, that guy that can do all the things we want him to do. But then when reality hits the road, who is the guy that shows up most of the time in our life? A lot of times that guy is the guy who skips on his workouts, the guy who gets lazy, the guy who doesn't do what he says he's going to do. And so I started thinking about that more. How do we get over that, and how have I been able to do that at times in my life? Because I definitely fall short a lot as well. But it always comes down to really two things for me. The first one is deep accountability. Having a document or some way of people holding me accountable. It's one of the things I've created in my community, which is our companion sheet, and it's actually our habits. What do we do daily? And then a group of other men holding each other accountable to that. And so that's an absolute game changer for really getting out of that life of quiet desperation, getting that life of power. Starts with having that real core accountability. And the second one is understanding that discipline is great, but the mindset has to change with discipline, or else you're always a prisoner. What do I mean by that? Guys will hit a day where they do all the things they say they're going to do, but they still feel like crap about themselves. And this goes back to deeper programming. This goes back to this belief of them never being enough. So it doesn't matter how many goals they hit, right? An indicator of this is they hit a goal, and the moment they hit a goal, immediately they're already looking at the next one. They're not enjoying the moment. They're not being present. They're always thinking future focused of who I need to be, because they think that's going to help their performance. But actually real, true, high quality performance comes when we can sit into being happy and content with who we are today, while also being disciplined and working hard. So it's a different energetic system. I want you guys to understand this. It's not working from a need to get love from ourselves, from a need to get respect from ourselves. It's working from a need to want to accomplish, rather than from a need to identify and love ourselves. And so most men who are working in a lower capacity in their life, meaning they're not having the results, they're not doing 7-8 figures, and even a lot of guys who are doing 7-8 figures, they're still using this operating system, which is like the reward and punishment operating system. I am not going to love myself until I do those things that I want to do. And the problem with this fuel is just like diesel fuel. It's a dirty fuel for most of us. And so when we're using that fuel rather than the fuel of accomplishment, the fuel of feeling into ourselves, loving who we are, and accomplishing for the sake of accomplishing, pushing ourselves for the sake of pushing ourselves, not for the sake of loving ourselves or being able to sleep well with ourselves at night, it is an absolute game changer. And I think it's what removes people from that life of quiet desperation that Jordan Peterson talks about. And so quick recap there. I think the way to do this is first deep accountability. What do I mean by deep accountability? I mean real, true accountability, not like, hey man, are you keeping up with your goals? Like you have a spreadsheet that you are updating every day, and people are seeing you and holding you accountable to actually doing it. And the second one is operating from an operating system that is actually love, irregardless of whether you accomplish the goal or not. So that way you are not accomplishing the goals to give yourself conditional love, but you're loving yourself and respecting yourself along the process, and knowing you're human and you're gonna mess up. So that is it, guys. I hope you enjoy this, and let's get it. Let's go.